Jack was a human in a world where humans were considered weak, small, and easy to dismiss. The alien species on this planet had no respect for the humans who had dared to travel to their lands, but Jack didn't mind. He had learned long ago that being underestimated was an advantage, especially when it meant his enemies never saw him coming. He was sent here for one purpose: to guard Zara, the princess of a proud and ancient alien race. Zara was everything humans weren't. Tall, strong, and powerful, she was trained to be a warrior, feared by many. Her people were one of the most respected in the galaxy, and she was the crown jewel of their empire. When Jack arrived at the palace to meet her, Zara didn't even look up. Her eyes scanned him briefly, and a sharp, mocking laugh escaped her lips. "You guard me?" she said, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You're too tiny. You'll be crushed in seconds." Her alien features were sharp, with pointed ears, glowing blue skin, and piercing eyes that glowed brighter with every word. She stood a head taller than Jack, her muscles rippling under the thin armor she wore. Jack had expected no less. Humans were rarely trusted in this world, let alone given any real responsibility. Most alien species looked down on him, thinking of humans as nothing more than simple creatures. But Jack wasn't here to prove them wrong. He was here to do his job. So instead of responding, he simply gave a nod, letting her words slide off like water on stone. "Lead the way," he said, keeping his voice steady, offering no argument. Zara's eyes narrowed. She clearly didn't like the calmness in his voice. She didn't like being dismissed. "We'll see how long you last," she muttered, turning on her heel and heading out of the palace. The mission was simple: protect Zara as she made her way through the dangerous wilderness of the planet. Jack's job was to ensure she made it to the other side of the forest without harm. Zara, for all her confidence and bravado, was a royal princess, not accustomed to the dangers lurking outside her fortified palace walls. They moved through dense foliage, the trees so tall that they seemed to scrape the sky. The air was thick with the sounds of strange alien creatures calling from the shadows. Creatures Jack couldn't even begin to identify. Zara moved gracefully ahead, her every step calculated, but Jack stayed close behind, his eyes scanning the surroundings, alert for any sign of danger. "Are you even paying attention?" Zara's voice broke the silence. Jack turned his head to find her glaring at him, arms crossed over her chest. She had stopped in her tracks, waiting for him to catch up. "Of course," Jack said, his voice level, "but I'm not the one walking in the middle of the path." She scowled, clearly displeased with the way he had spoken to her, but she said nothing more. Instead, she turned back to continue her journey, confident that no harm would come to her. She had lived a lifetime without fear, surrounded by her warriors and the safety of her palace. The dangers of this planet were nothing new to her, but what Zara didn't know was that she wasn't in control anymore. The planet wasn't hers. It was dangerous, and it would take more than her arrogance and strength to survive it. Jack had learned that long ago. He had spent years training, honing his skills, preparing for moments just like this, and soon, he would show her why humans could not be underestimated. As they ventured deeper into the forest, a shift in the atmosphere caught Jack's attention. The air grew still, and the noises from the creatures of the forest grew quiet. Jack felt it first, the prickling sensation on the back of his neck. Zara must have noticed too, because she stopped and looked around, her hand instinctively going to the blade at her side. "It's too quiet," she murmured. Jack nodded. "We're being watched." Before Zara could react, a shadow darted from the trees, and a group of 9 alien hunters emerged from the underbrush, their eyes glowing red in the dim light of the forest. These were no ordinary predators. They were ruthless, known for their hunting skills and their brutal efficiency. They didn't just hunt for food, they hunted for sport. Zara's eyes widened, but she quickly drew her blade, ready for a fight. Her confidence returned in an instant. "I can handle this," she said, her voice filled with authority. But Jack wasn't so sure. The hunters were circling them, closing in from all directions. There were 9 of them, and Zara was no match for that many. Even with her strength, she lunged at the nearest hunter, her blade flashing in the dim light. But the hunter easily dodged her strike, its movements faster than she had anticipated. It swiped at her, its claws slicing through the air, narrowly missing her side. Jack didn't wait for permission. He was already moving, his body reacting before his mind had fully processed the danger. With lightning speed, he grabbed the nearest hunter, slamming his fist into its throat. The creature gurgled in shock before falling limp in his grasp. Zara's eyes widened in disbelief. She had never seen anything like this before. Humans weren't supposed to be able to move that fast, that decisively. But Jack didn't have time to explain. The other hunters were closing in, their weapons drawn, their eyes filled with rage. Jack spun, kicking one in the chest, sending it flying backward into a tree. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting to protect the princess who had once mocked him. Zara's mind raced as she tried to process what she was witnessing. She had thought Jack was weak, a liability, but now she saw the truth. The human was not only strong, but he was a fighter in a way she had never expected. Each strike he delivered was precise, devastating. Within moments, 3 hunters lay on the ground, unconscious or dead. Zara felt a pang of awe and something else, respect. But she refused to let it show. As the battle raged on, Jack moved like a shadow, his movements fluid and unpredictable. He grabbed another hunter by the arm, twisting it until the alien let out a cry of pain. With a quick twist, Jack broke the hunter's neck. Zara's heart raced. She had never seen anyone fight like this. The human was like a storm, unstoppable, leaving destruction in his wake. The last of the hunters attempted to flee, but Jack was faster. In a final move, he slammed into the creature, knocking it to the ground and snapping its neck with a single motion. Zara stood still, her breath heavy, her mind spinning. She had just witnessed something extraordinary, something that shattered her perception of humans. Jack wiped his hands on his pants, his expression calm, even though his heart was still pounding. He looked at Zara, his voice steady. "Do you still think I'm too tiny to guard you?" Zara said nothing. She simply stared at him, her pride bruised, but a deep, unspoken respect beginning to form in the pit of her stomach. The forest was eerily quiet after the battle. The hunters were all taken down, their bodies sprawled across the ground, motionless. Jack stood over the last one, wiping his hands on his pants as if the fight had been nothing more than a brief inconvenience. But Zara was staring at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. The silence stretched between them, thick with the tension of what had just happened. Zara had never seen a human fight like that, so deadly, so precise. She had always considered humans to be weak, unworthy of her attention, but now she was forced to see the truth. She couldn't help but respect him. In all her years of training and living among the strongest warriors, she had never encountered anyone quite like Jack, and yet here he was standing in front of her, having saved her life from a threat she hadn't expected. "You're different," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack gave a small shrug, his expression unreadable. "I'm still just a human." Zara's pride flared, but she quickly suppressed it. She had a reputation to uphold, after all. That was impressive. "But don't get too comfortable," she said, her tone returning to its usual sharpness. Jack nodded, not taking her words to heart. He had expected nothing less. "We should keep moving. The danger isn't over yet." Zara nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in her chest. She had always relied on her strength and her people's might to protect her. But Jack had just proven that there was more to strength than size and power. They continued on their journey through the forest, the path growing darker as the sun dipped behind the towering trees. The air felt thick, charged with an unspoken tension. Zara kept her gaze forward, but she couldn't help but glance at Jack from time to time. Her thoughts tangled with confusion and curiosity. Why had he saved her? Why had he fought so fiercely without hesitation? Was it just because of his duty as her guard, or was there something more? As the night descended, the temperature dropped sharply. The cold winds of the mountain range began to sweep through the trees, carrying with them the scent of danger. They were getting closer to the dangerous part of the forest, where only the strongest survived. Jack was still alert, his eyes scanning the darkening surroundings. Zara, despite her strength and warrior instincts, couldn't help but feel a sense of vulnerability. She had never been in this kind of danger before. She had always been the one to protect, the one to lead, never the one to rely on someone else. But now, with Jack by her side, she was beginning to understand what it meant to trust another person with her life. "I know you're not used to this," Jack said, breaking the silence, "but I need you to stay close. There are more threats ahead, and I can't do it alone." Zara met his gaze, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She had never been someone who needed help. She had always fought on her own, relied on her own strength. But something in Jack's voice made her reconsider. For the first time, she realized that she couldn't do everything by herself. She wasn't invincible, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to trust someone else. They continued through the forest, the darkness growing deeper as they entered the dangerous heart of the woods. The air was thick with the sounds of creatures watching them from the shadows, their glowing eyes following every step. Zara could feel the weight of their gaze, but Jack's presence gave her a strange sense of security. As they moved deeper into the woods, Zara's thoughts began to race. She couldn't stop thinking about the way Jack had fought. His movements were swift, calculated, and deadly. He had saved her life not once, but twice. She had never seen a human fight like that, and she couldn't deny the admiration that had begun to grow inside her. "I still don't get it," she muttered, more to herself than to Jack. "Why did you fight so hard for me?" "I'm just a princess." Jack glanced over at her, his eyes scanning their surroundings. "You're more than that, Zara. You're someone worth protecting." She looked at him, a frown forming on her face. "You don't even know me." Jack stopped and turned to face her. "I don't need to know you to understand that you're valuable. I've learned that much in my life. Sometimes you don't have to know someone to know they're worth protecting." Zara felt a strange heat rise in her chest at his words. It was a feeling she wasn't used to, vulnerability. She had always prided herself on being strong, untouchable, but now, with Jack standing in front of her, she felt a shift. For the first time, she wondered if maybe there was more to life than just strength and power. Before she could say anything, a distant growl interrupted her thoughts. The ground shook beneath their feet as something massive moved toward them through the trees. Zara instinctively reached for her blade, but Jack held up a hand. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice low and calm.
"This is going to be worse than before." The creature that emerged from the trees was unlike anything they had encountered so far.
It was enormous, towering over them with thick black scales and glowing red eyes. Its claws scraped the ground as it approached, its breath coming in heavy bursts. Zara's heart raced. She had fought many creatures in her life, but none had ever been this intimidating. The creature was faster than anything she had encountered, and its sheer size made it difficult to get a clean strike. Jack stepped forward, his posture steady and unflinching. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his eyes never leaving the creature. Zara hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. She had already seen what Jack was capable of, and if anyone could take down this monster, it was him. The creature lunged at them, its massive claws swiping through the air. Jack was already moving, his body a blur as he dodged the attack with ease. He struck the creature with a swift punch to its side, sending it stumbling backward. Zara watched, amazed, as Jack continued to fight with speed and precision. He wasn't just a human, he was something more. Something extraordinary. And for the first time in her life, Zara realized that maybe strength wasn't everything. Maybe there was more to being a warrior than just power and size. With a final decisive strike, Jack brought the creature to its knees, his fists slamming into its skull. The creature collapsed, its glowing eyes dimming as it breathed its last breath. Jack stepped back, wiping the sweat from his brow. He didn't even look tired. He turned to Zara, who was still standing in awe. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm as if defeating a giant creature was just another part of his day. Zara swallowed hard, her chest tightening with a mixture of awe and something else she couldn't quite place. I didn't know humans could do that." Jack gave a small smile. "There's a lot you don't know about humans." Zara stared at him for a long moment, the reality of what she had just witnessed sinking in. She had always thought she was the one in control, the one who could protect everyone. But now, standing beside Jack, she felt a shift. For the first time, she saw the true strength of the human at her side. "I was wrong," Zara finally said, her voice softer than usual. "You're not just a guard, Jack, you're a warrior." Jack nodded, a small knowing smile on his lips. "I told you." They stood in the quiet of the forest, the air still heavy with the aftermath of the battle. But now there was something else between them. An understanding, a respect that hadn't been there before. Zara had come here to protect herself, to rely on her own strength. But in Jack, she found something she hadn't expected. Someone who could be more than just her protector. Someone who had proven, time and again, that strength didn't always come from size or power. It came from something deeper, and Zara was beginning to see that.